Hello and welcome to episode 29 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And we're your source for weekly Drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
Yeah, basically just two regular dudes drinking irregular beers, talking about Magic regularly.
Yep, and this week we have a very special episode. We are talking about Strixhaven versus Ravnica and how those two are the same / different, mostly different. Also, we have the Strixhaven League Weekend number 2 coming up, so of course we have to draft our fantasy teams for that. But first, each week we both bring a beer, we drink our own, then drink each other's, then rate them on a scale of bronze to mythic, and choose the best for last. So with that, Jeff, what is on tap?
Okay, this week I brought Narnia Lil IPA. It's a Sawdust City brewing company. It's 5.5%. The can is a nice little road into the forest. Let me see if I can remember why I chose this one. Oh yeah, I remember because the description is actually written by their brewmaster, allegedly, but it describes how it uses Escarpment Labs Foggy London Ale Yeast. Escarpment Labs is a local yeast rancher, I guess is what you would call them, a yeast rancher. And they're the same ones that I use to kind of support local in my brewing. So I thought that was cool and bought the beer because of that.
Oh, that's really cool. Wow, you read the can? I don't think I...
Sometimes.
I don't know the last time I read a can. Anyway, so you brought Sawdust City. I also brought Sawdust City Brewing Company.
I didn't realize it was a tap takeover episode.
I didn't either. I didn't know that. Okay, I guess we both picked... something with the same brewery. But this is their Tropical Storm, which is a Mojito IPA. It's 6.9% noise, and the color of the can is like a mint green, and there's like a lime and some kind of tropical thing. So the color was really nice. That's why I picked it up. I didn't read a little thing on the back explaining why.
I see. Well, tell me what Sam, the brewmaster, has to say later. I guess I have my own in the fridge. So
yeah. Oh, I guess he did say something on the back. Yeah, something about tart and stuff. Anyway, we're not going to read that right now because we have a lot of things to get through because Magic news. Holy crap. What a week.
Info dump.
Yeah. This week / I don't know, just since we last talked to everyone, everything happened. There was the Arena Open this last weekend, which we obviously talked about all last week, and there were some server issues.
Yep. I was playing in a different tournament, but was still experiencing difficulties connecting with my opponents and stuff because everyone's like, yep, connecting to server.
Mm-hmm. Ugh. So, so that's kind of, frustrating. But the good news is that there were probably server issues because of all the people playing the Arena Open. And we just want more people to play. So maybe this will just help them know, hey, next time people really love this. And like they missed it last time, so now they're coming again. And, we just need to be more prepared for it. So hopefully that's how they take that away. But, overall it seemed great. Also, if you didn't know, if you did not complete your day 1, you get a full refund. Wizards has already given that to you. And also, yeah, there's some code where you can get some experience.
So if you just didn't complete your day 1,
yes.
Like, what if I played 3 matches and went 1 and 2 in my like 7 best of 1 or whatever?
So you still had 1 match to lose?
Yeah.
Then you got refunded. Yeah. If you
they would have just given me my 20,000 gold or whatever.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that should have happened. If it hasn't, please contact Wizard support. But they did say that they did that. And there's a code you can type in, experimental overload, I think, and then you get like 2,000 experience if you missed some, whatever mastery pass stuff. But
yeah,
and that works for everybody. So go get some of that.
Everyone should do that one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that it totally sucks if you set aside, on Saturday I'm going to play in this thing, and you weren't able to really participate and you were looking forward to it and stuff. But overall, like we're saying, this kind of is a good omen in the sense that it means a ton of people wanted to play this.
Exactly. So yes, it is a really frustrating thing if that's what you're doing. But like you said,
hopefully they can get their act together moving forward, and it just means they'll offer more and more of these.
Yeah.
If people are really enjoying them.
Exactly. So that is great. Starting this, I believe it's the day this episode comes out, which is Thursday, so it's 2 days away from us. But It is the College Cup, which is something that's going to be happening the next 3 weeks. It's kind of one of those events that they do where you get some, there's some wacky format and you play it and then you get some prizes. The reason that we're actually talking about it is because you do get the Japanese alt art card styles, which are a hot commodity, I would say. So do pay attention to those because the prizes are worth it, I would say.
I actually didn't know when this started, so I've just been using my Dina avatar, since I knew this was a thing, just in case it started without me knowing.
So basically what happens is that if you play in this event and depending on which avatar you use, the sleeves and your pet, you will be gaining points for your chosen college or a mix of the ones that you like the most. And then at the end of the event, whichever college ended up getting the most points, Arena, I don't know for how long, but they're going to transform it, and it's like your college won, and there's going to be streamers on Arena that show your college, and everyone gets like a exclusive card sleeve of that college and stuff. So
sounds nothing like the House Cup.
Yeah. But it seems kind of fun. That's a cute little fun thing. Yeah. And the prizes are really good, and that's why I like it mostly.
So is it a specific event you have to play in, or is it just like while this is ongoing, if I play with my Strixhaven sleeves, then that college gets my...
So I believe it's actually just the first win that you get in that event counts the point. So it's not like if you're grinding forever, you can grind.
You're helping Witherbloom win.
Yeah, so just know that you can do that. Also, it's great because the avatars come with the Mastery Pass like early on in the paths, so you can choose, and it doesn't take forever. You don't have to put in a bunch of time to try to get them. They're very accessible.
Definitely.
Which is great. We also had a big there's tons of stuff. The Summer of Legend, I guess, was the article that they were talking about. But basically, there's a big article explaining everything that's going to happen this summer. Tons and tons of stuff. But the things that are really important to us on Arena is that we are getting another we're getting another historic anthology, number 5. Mm-hmm. It comes out at the end of this month, and there will be 25 cards in it.
I mean, the last one didn't do much for me, but we talked about that already. Mm-hmm. But I'm always excited for these, Yeah. Historic's a really cool format, and so adding more cool stuff to it is always a plus.
Exactly. It's funny because we just had something that was so huge and shook up Historic immensely that these little 25 cards really don't feel like that much.
Yeah.
When you're like, well, you just added like 60 something cards, so now it just feels like, okay, fine. This is like a kind of, the cherry on top or something. But we'll see if they continue their trend where a lot of the cards are good for Brawl instead of regular.
Why might they do that?
We'll see. Maybe by July we'll have Historic Brawl forever.
No, that's a crazy aggressive estimate.
I don't know. Sounds like it. But there was something that happened in the Summer of Legend article that it didn't grind my gears. It was so much worse than that. And I think now we've decided we're going to change the segment to it bolts my bird is what it does.
So long-time Magic players will be familiar with the feeling of having your bird bolted, which is, of course, when your Gilded Goose gets hit by a Demon Bolt from your opponent, so it stops your mana engine.
Yes, that's originally those are the cards that were used for Bolt My Bird. But anyway, the D&D set is coming out in July, and we already have spoilers for it in May.
And that bolts your bird, doesn't it?
That really bolts my bird. What the fuck? Oh, man. Oh.
I feel like we're literally 2 weeks into Strixhaven.
Like it's official release. Yeah, and I just want to point. So that's, frustrating, but, whatever. There's some stuff in it, and it's cool. You can go check out those spoilers if you want. However, the release schedule that kind of was like, what? That seems interesting for this next set is that previews for it start on June 29th. But the set comes out on Arena on July 8th. And then the pre-release is the next weekend on the 16th. And then the official release is on the 23rd. So we get it on Arena 2 weeks before it officially comes out. And then spoiler season is only 1 week long. Very strange. But we still have spoilers a month before the set officially releases. I don't exactly know what's going on. But... hey, there you go.
Yeah.
Take that.
And, In a month and a half, we'll be complaining that spoilers are upon us.
I know. Anyway, as you know, we're not the biggest fan of spoilers sometimes, but it's fun to see them, and get on the hype train. And usually I jump.
I like that they're waiting and only doing 1 week of spoilers rather than like, okay, spoilers start at the end of May, and it's like Strixhaven just came out.
Yeah, it's like so. That is good. We got a little bit of a taste, and hopefully that'll hold people off for a while, and then we'll get there. But anyway, man, that's the housekeeping.
A lot of stuff.
But let's just jump right into this conversation. I'm pretty excited about this. We've been talking about it. We just wanted to kind of... So obviously with Strixhaven, because it's enemy-colored pairs, and we have names for enemy-colored pairs in Ravnica, we just kind of want to talk about the differences between the two, or, them versus each other, or just kind of like, there has been a lot of talk about them in general, just because this is the first time Wizards is giving us an official name for a color pair that we already have an official name for.
And just, this is kind of an experiment that they did. Is it possible for us to do a 2-color or a color pair set that is not Ravnica, that feels very different from Ravnica? And so did they succeed in that? Did they not succeed in that?
All those things.
Okay.
And
what's the deal?
I heard something that, like, really the last enemy colored focus set that wasn't like a Ravnica thing, and Ravnica also mixes them together, so it's not always like allies and enemies, but it was like like Eventide or something, and then Apocalypse.
Oh, Eventide, I guess.
It was like Eventide and then Apocalypse, I think. So man, it's really like, this is a special thing. I didn't fully grasp how
I think Apocalypse was like the first time they did enemy color pairs, and that was the big deal.
Yeah,
it was whoa, we got enemy color pairs.
So also for people who don't know, if you're new to the enemy and allied colored things, basically if you look at the color pie in the back of a Magic card, the colors that touch each other are allies, and the colors that don't touch each other are enemies. So white's allies would be green and blue, enemies would be black and red, essentially.
Right, and so green and black are enemies, but they are a color pair in this set. So all of the color pairs are formed from 2 enemy colors.
Exactly. Which, I mean, we have said this before, and just as far as Strixhaven goes, I have really been kind of really surprised by it, and I really love the limited format and the set itself. Just a lot. I've been really just happy all around, man.
Yeah, so why don't we just dive right in? Do you want to start by going maybe like talking about a specific college and its corresponding guild? And
absolutely. I mean,
whether they... Let's
start with like the biggest one that everyone was like, going into. Boros is obviously the guild that people tends to not love. I mean, I know you have a very special place for Boros in your heart, but
I grew up a Boros mage. So.
It always kind of felt like Boros was... I mean, they're all trying to do the same kinds of things each time we go back to Ravnica, in slightly different ways. But the attacking thing seems to be like, yeah, okay, Boros likes to attack. It's like the military. They enforce stuff on Ravnica, and they just like attack stuff, and that's what they do. So it's been such a huge breath of fresh air to have this Lorehold college that is very different.
For sure. For me, this one, just even when I saw the previews, got really excited. Like, wow, red white with a graveyard theme, and connecting it to history and like, your ancestors, and that's why they have this spirit theme too. It just all really resonated, and I was like, I didn't see any cards that made me feel like this isn't a red-white card. They're just doing this to be different.
Exactly.
They did Graveyard Matters in a very red-white way, and I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I think that they have, like, Lorehold is the home run slam dunk. Like,
right.
As far as, like, the I don't know if, like, the cards are going to be great in Constructed or in Limited. They don't always come together correctly or well, but I think just looking at the cards and the themes and what they wanted to get into it, just by looking at it, it just has so much flavor, and you can really feel it. I think they did a great job with all of that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I like how they sort of intentionally pulled it away, even though both of these colors have aggressive elements to them. Mm-hmm. That's why Boros, it was so natural to make it aggressive. They decided to pull away from that and make it kind of slow. Like, maybe not the slowest college, but maybe the second slowest.
Yeah, definitely more like mid-rangey to the higher end mid-range. Or yeah, it's been great. I think that I mean there are some attacky cards in it. There is like the Blade Historian, which is like, oh, that looks like a Boros card to me because it makes everybody get double strike.
True, yeah. There are still some cards, but basically any card that wants to attack is going to feel Boros.
Exactly. I guess that is the case where it's like, well, if it's aggressive in any sense, or like it buffs power instead of toughness, or only power, it feels like it's Boros for some reason. You're like, okay, well.
What is this red direct damage spell? I thought Lorehold wasn't the same as Boros.
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah, that's just a red thing.
Mm-hmm. But I've just been really loving that, and it's been very easy to say there's a distinction between Boros and Lorehold for sure, and especially if you're building decks or something, you can be like, this is actually a Lorehold deck because of these reasons, and the strategy I'm doing is like this, as opposed to what you would typically say a Boros deck is.
Right. And obviously this is an overarching thing, but one of the strategies they used to make the colleges feel different from the guilds is to not give each college a keyword. Mm-hmm. Because every Ravnica set, each guild has its own keyword. So Boros had Mentor, Battalion, and Radiance. And those keywords, like, well, Radiance was weird and crappy, but Battalion and Mentor both kind of tell you, hey, this attack, attack, attack.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really cool here that they tell you what Lorehold is doing by showing you how it uses the keywords of Strixhaven to its advantage, rather than, oh, this keyword is clearly built to attack.
Yeah. So the big thing, we had mentioned this in the last episode, but just talking about how, like you just said, each guild has their own keyword in each one of those sets. And those keywords usually kind of work together with the other shared color that they have with the other ones that are in the set. And how Strixhaven doesn't have any specific keywords for any specific college. Every college has access to basically all the different keywords. There's some kind of new things that were brought in, but nothing feels like, I don't feel as like railroad tracky as I usually feel in Ravnica, I think, as far as like drafting goes.
It definitely feels really different than a guild set to draft, because for me it's like, I liked that I would often end up in a shard, you know, 3 colors, and that my cards would synergize, and I felt like I was doing this thing. Whereas I don't think that's really a thing here. You can splash. Sure, you could splash black cards in your Lorehold deck, but they don't synergize that well with your, like, the black-white cards and the red-white cards aren't necessarily built to work together. So it feels more like a 2-color pair deck, you know,
that's
oddly
splashing.
Enough. That's splashing a black card.
That's interesting, because I feel differently. I feel like Strixhaven feels more like I can grab pieces from other colleges, and it doesn't feel as rigid, where it's like, sometimes when I play some Ravnica sets, it was like, well, this card, obviously I'm splashing for something or whatever, that just feels so out of place that I could really tell, oh, this black card is supposed to be in the other deck, and it doesn't fit in this deck at all.
Yeah, see, for me, Strixhaven just doesn't really feel like a faction set. It just feels like a regular draft format. So your cards have about as much synergy as they usually do.
Yeah.
You know, like, and
no, I agree with that for sure.
And you're not, in terms of your point of railroading, it's not like, oh, you're green black, now you just take green black cards or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's just that you're going to end up in one of the enemy color pairs a lot more often.
Yeah.
So it just feels like a regular set where 90% of the time you end up in an enemy color pair.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I think and that's probably why I like it so much, because I was worried going into it thinking it was going to be just kind of like a carbon copy of Ravnica stuff, and it feels just extremely different in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, Ravnica felt more like you're either drafting one of the guilds or one of the shards that overlap 2 guilds.
Yeah.
And you're doing the thing that those color combinations want you to do.
Yeah, exactly. And one of those color combinations that we have seen in Strixhaven as well is the Izzet Guild in Ravnica, which that was like the mad scientists, and they're all about spells and lots of spells. Usually kind of cantrippy things. there's a lot of like storm stuff going on, because part of it is like they're harnessing the lightning from the sky to power their machines. And this one, as far as the college goes, we've both kind of talked about this before, but it feels closer, or maybe the closest to
I think so.
guild.
For me, this one is the least different, or
Reimagined.
it resonated the least with me as being new.
Yeah. So of course this is the Prismari, which is the blue-red college, who are the artists and everything. I mean, it can be hard because the entire set is spell focused. So usually when you see like tons and tons of spells, when your deck is mostly spells, you're thinking, is it? Just through years and years of playing Magic, it just feels, is
Sure.
it?
But that's kind of why I was excited to see something new for red,
Yeah.
blue. And granted, they didn't just say, "Oh, this is spells matters," because of course, like you're saying, that would mean nothing when the whole set is spells matter. But I don't know, high mana value spells felt like a bit of a cop out to me.
Yeah.
And just more of the same. I would have loved it if they just explored something that had nothing to do with spells, like the actual theory behind, or like, sorry, the theme of each of these things doesn't have to do with spells, because it doesn't need to, because the set is all about spells. You know,
Yeah.
Lorehold is graveyard stuff. It's not explicitly spells that have flashback or something.
Yeah.
So this, I would have liked to see just their theme have nothing to do with spells,
Yeah.
because the set has everything to do with spells. Maybe something like it cares about, the red side cares about discarding cards and the blue side cares about drawing, or even just, maybe something a little further than drawing cards for blue, because they've done that before. But, discarding or whatever, because you have looting and rummaging, it could care about that.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like so of course they're the artists. So I do like the idea that you're spending a lot of time building up your earlier turns to play something really big, which is like your performance, which, the setup and waiting for it and having to try to have one big explosive thing happen. I do get that feeling. It definitely comes across. But I do know kind of what you're saying, where as far as,
and I love Magma Opus. So
oh yeah,
don't get me wrong. I love that card, and I think it's the perfect example of what you're saying. Even in name, right? It's literally like the artist's defining work, culminating big work,
with magma,
right?
Which is great, and I like the idea that you're dancing and making it rain fire and all that kind of stuff.
I'm gonna start using it in like everyday conversation. Whenever I mean to say magnum opus, I'm gonna say magma opus. It's the artist's magma opus.
Oh, it's just their magma opus. It's just it's on fire almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was great. But as far as like the way it feels different from they both feel kind of like almost the crazy people a little bit. It's like, oh, there's the artist who's, doing some crazy dance thing. And, oh, that's the scientist up in their laboratory working on something weird. It both has that kind of working on something weird. That kind of crosses over. But
Mad artists.
Though moving right along, another one that feels kind of similar to me, which is funny, because we obviously started with the one that was the most different. So now we're getting into some of the ones that feel like they overlap a bit more, and this would be Simic and Quandrix, I think.
So Simic was all about, they were like, the bio engineers. I guess they were also kind of mad scientists, but the side of mad scientist that was like grafting different types of creatures together to make some amalgam monstrosity. And they cared thematically, or like mechanically, about +1/+1 counters was usually kind of their thing.
Because the flavor was like you are trying to improve yourself. So blue is about improving yourself through knowledge, and usually green is about letting the earth do what it does, because it is improving itself on its own. So putting those two together is kind of like
letting nature take its course.
It's like, oh man, my arm would be so much better if it was actually a claw from a giant crab. Then I could really do some damage. And that's kind of what they do. They're like, oh, well, we'll just stitch that onto you, which kind of, in essence, is putting a couple +1/+1 counters on your creature. But yeah, +1/+1 counters and ramp. I mean, we've been doing Simic stuff. Simic is just like that color pair that's like, okay, you're drawing cards and ramping. Cool.
Right, like the Simic color pair has traditionally been about ramp, especially at the top levels. I don't know how much the actual guild was ever about ramping. There's always a little bit of it, but just because green ramps, you know. But most of the most egregious cards for it, like Uro and
Oko,
Growth Spiral, weren't actually like Simic cards. Technically, they were just
Growth Spiral cards. Was technically.
Oh, you're right.
It was on.
You're right. It was.
Yeah. That was from Ravnica.
So Ravnica Legions, wasn't it?
Yeah. So that's the one card. But as far as like Uro and Oko goes and stuff, those are just from other sets.
Meanwhile, Quandrix, they're the math nerds. I totally get that. I'm glad we're seeing some representation finally. And their thing is, I don't really know. What is Quandrix's thing?
I don't know.
It's ramp, right?
It's cards with numbers in it, right?
It's like ramp up into nothing really. It's ramp up into a big creature token seems to be.
Basically, make a big creature token, make a big thing.
Because that creature token is called a fractal, they're the math nerds.
It does have the sub theme of like you want to have 8 lands. There are a couple things. There's a squirrel that cares about that, and another common card. But this seems the weirdest. Where I'm like, I don't know where to nail you down really. So I don't think I would ever be able to look at a deck and be like, oh no, that's not a Simic deck. That's Quandrix. Ever.
Right.
It would always be like there's.
So in Maro's article, he kind of spoke to it a little bit. He said that when they handed off in Vision Design, it was a go wide thing. So fractals were
okay.
Instead of making one big fractal, you were meant to make many small fractals,
which would make sense with bio. And what is that one card? It's like a
biomathematician.
Biomathematician.
Literally just somebody's job, but okay.
Yeah.
So we have a new card. It's called Physicist. Cool. That really takes me out of the real world and into this story.
But it's like a creature that like enters, makes a fractal, and then puts counters on all your fractals.
Right. And so the math aspect was supposed to come in effects like that, where it's like put that exact effect or double all the counters, or you have, or put a +1/+1 counter on each creature, and so you used to have to figure out how much damage that is. And I guess in development they changed it to a bit more of a ramp focused thing. Yeah. And so what's left is, I don't know, it cares about +1/+1 counters, it does a bit of ramping, it tries to go wide a little bit in some cases, and you kind of, for me, this was a bit of a mishmash that I don't actually know from playing the set. Like, you talk about Asfan and stuff. I don't know from looking at the cards and playing the set what a Quandrix deck is really supposed to do other than ramp into big Prismari spells.
Yeah, kind of. And it really feels like they lend themselves together. Like, oh, well, you can fix yourself really well in Quandrix. If you have a big Prismari spell, you can play it really easily off of that.
Because Quandrix doesn't have that much stuff to ramp into. Like, it has the Bookworm, I guess, or whatever. But at a constructed level, almost nothing. It makes the giant XX
with your library
48 fractal.
But so that one's one of the weirdest ones to me. I think is that it just it's just kind of there. I see how they changed it because Simic does feel like you put a lot of counters on a bunch of different things, and they had cards that would double counters on 2 or 3 creatures or whatever, and all that kind of stuff. So if they're trying to get away from that, they just got away into kind of a space that feels a little.
And if in the end it is supposed to be ramp, like Maro's kind of suggesting, that's pretty disappointing because blue-green is literally always ramp.
Exactly.
Just do anything else,
Exactly. So, kind of, Sorry, math nerds, I guess. Sorry, Jeff.
But even the head dragon, right? It isn't really a ramp card. It puts counters on it makes all of your creatures have his power and toughness, so it's a go wide card.
But it also, when it enters, it like doubles the counters on a creature. So it makes one big thing that gets a little bit bigger when you attack because they all get +4. I don't know. I don't know. That's probably the roughest one for me. I don't think I've ever called a deck of Quandrix besides in draft, and I don't think I'm ever gonna say, oh, this deck is Quandrix and constructed ever. It just
Although Quandrix Command is one of the better designed ones. I don't know if it's any good.
That's true.
But I like that it's very high impact but extremely situational modes.
But moving right along, getting into Golgari, which I know is, one of your favorites. So I'll kind of like just pass the reins and I'll let you talk about Golgari.
And also getting into the worst command.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've always loved green-black, or I've always loved Golgari, mostly because I love the play style of green-black, and not because I liked the guild necessarily. Like, I like graveyard shenanigans as much as the next person, but I never liked broken graveyard stuff. Like, Dredge, not my thing. I mean, the deck that just flips over its library and on turn 3 you're super dead. I don't enjoy that kind of magic because it feels more like, well, if my library was in the right order, you're fucked. But if it's not, my deck doesn't do anything. Do you want to play again? Which, by the way, if you love those kinds of decks, that's totally.
I was going to say that sounds kind of fun to me. So
yeah, it's just not like I love green because it just has efficient green-black because it has like the most efficient creatures and the most efficient removal. And to me, that's just like a fun way to play, is to just try to stick a couple of reasonably sized beaters and then just one for one and, see who comes out on top. So I really love Witherbloom because I just love it's my favorite color pair that is totally different. Like it doesn't play at all like Golgari, really.
Really not at all. There might be like one recursive thing, but for the most part, you don't really, there are some, like a couple sack things, but for the most part it's just like, yeah, the reason you want to sack this is so you can either keep this giant creature that you have, or you want to sack that giant creature to get a bunch of little ones, and you just have a ton of little pests around, and when they die you gain life, and then you have some gain life trigger things.
Right, so Golgari was always just graveyard centric, right?
Yeah.
They had Undergrowth, which counts how many creatures you have in your graveyard. It's Scavenge, which literally takes creatures out of your graveyard and turns them into counters, and they had, well, the infamous dredge mechanic.
Yeah.
Whereas Witherbloom, I mean, green-black's always going to have some sort of cards, that deal with the graveyard in some way. Like some sort of Raise Dead type card. But the actual Witherbloom college is all about, like, life gain and spending life. Like, it's all about manipulating your life total for resources.
Yeah.
So the green side is gaining life and the black side is spending life instead of mana to get kind of more pushed abilities. And that's such an obvious like combo for this color pair, but I just love it. I think it really plays well in practice too, even if it's not the most powerful of the colleges. I still think it's just really cool that I have these cards that, they gain life, and then I have this card that's like, you can spend life to do this great thing.
Well, you know what I really like about it is that as far as like where they started with Golgari and where they started with Witherbloom are fairly close, because Golgari is all about death and bringing back the dead, and this is still about life and death, just using something else to represent life and death. But as far as like the two,
like using
ideas,
life to represent life,
yeah,
that was
that's a
big step for them. Yeah.
But you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
I do think that was nice in the sense that it didn't feel like we were like trying to jump so far away. It was just like, hey, this is another way we could have done this type of idea, and I thought that was a really cool design space, and I've been really happy with the Witherbloom stuff.
Right.
Also just super fun to play.
And just as a general thing, like in the past, because it's graveyard based, Golgari tends to be either totally unplayable or completely busted, because it's really hard to like toe the line of a fair graveyard deck or graveyard mechanic. Like Undergrowth was just so they refused to push it. It was so clear so many of their cards could have easily been much better, but they were just, Wizards chose to make all the Undergrowth cards bad on rate.
Yep.
So it's like I have to jump through all these hoops to get creatures in my graveyard, and the payoff is less powerful than what my opponent's just casting, But then it's because they missed the mark so hard with Dredge that
They've just been scarred forever. They just
right. Whereas Witherbloom feels like it just lands in the middle. It's just like pretty good. It's not busted. It's not.
And it's fun.
It's not.
They did.
It's not garbage.
I think it hits the fun mark. Right there.
Right.
I've liked that. So that was great. And of course, like we didn't mention this before, but Witherbloom is like the kind of goth biologists is what they've kind of mentioned.
Pretty much, yeah. That's exactly their description.
They're kind of just like they're in potions class all the time, is what it seems like.
Yeah, exactly. It's Professor Snape,
Yeah, Snape is Bellatrix.
Yeah, exactly.
But coming around to the last enemy pair, so we have one of my favorites actually from Ravnica, which is I say Orzhov, but it's
I do too.
It's
Orzhov.
Yeah, a lot of people say Orzhov. Anyway, that's I guess technically the correct pronunciation, but whatever. When I do remember how to say Orzhov and not Azorius, I say Orzhov. But anyway, so these are kind of I didn't really know how to explain what they are, but they're kind of just like religious ghost bankers, because in Ravnica they're in charge of the banks, but they're all dead, and the point is that like even if you have a debt in life and you die, it doesn't mean that you get rid of your debt. You continue to pay your debt in death as well,
right.
Which sucks, and that's a fucking just religious banker thing. I feel like. So thank you, Kaya, for being a ghost assassin and fucking just ripping through them.
That's why she has a job,
Yeah, exactly. But basically, their main style, a lot of the things they do are like aristocrat stuff. So make tokens, kill things that make more tokens. So they have afterlife. They have extort, which is they're all about draining life. This is kind of similar to Witherbloom, where it's like I play this thing, you lose life, I gain life, and slowly I'm going to kill you. And in the sense, it's like a debt is slowly eating at you and fueling them. And so Silver Quill just feels very different as far as like...
So Silver Quill are like the wordsmiths,
Yeah.
I guess, for lack of a better word. The people that use words.
Yeah, I was saying like poets and lawyers, kind of. Or like,
Yeah.
they seem like they're in the debate club. That's what it seems like to me. So I'm like, oh...
Anyone who might say to you the pen is mightier than the sword, they're probably in Silver Quill.
Yeah. Well, Silver Quill probably has a pen that is a sword. It turns into like an ink sword or something, and they cut you. But
yeah. So you said Orzhov is your favorite. What do you think of Silver Quill?
actually, I really like Silver Quill as well. Because Orzhov has, the kind of sit back, make a bunch of stuff, and you kill them not through combat damage, but through things that they're out of their control. Like, oh, if you attack me, I'm going to block, and when my creatures die, you die. Or if I attack into you, even if you block, you still die. That stuff's kind of fun. And Silver Quill is just like, it kind of has the Boros mentality of attack and kill, and use your life to get an advantage to attack either in the air or just, I don't know, gain life with your Poet's Quill. I guess what does Poet's Quill do? You write evil notes to people, and then their tears give you life or something. I don't exactly know how that makes you better in combat, but
don't think too much about it.
Yeah. But as far as like what Silver Quill does by themselves, it really just feels like they kill things and attack.
Yeah.
They make inklings and a bunch of tokens and kill you and make it so you kill a big blocker. There's that one card that kills a blocker, and then everything else that blocks also makes them lose a life.
Yeah.
Has a similar feeling.
Yeah, and I always like black aggro decks. I think that's an archetype that kind of got lost for a while because it just wasn't as fast as the red and white aggro decks.
Yeah.
But that's by design, right? It's black aggro decks are meant to be a bit slower than red ones, but they have disruption. So it's kind of like, I'm going to attack you and kill you quickly, but I'm also going to kind of keep you off
your footing.
I'm going to sort of put you off guard with cards like Thoughtseizes.
Exactly.
And I love those kinds of decks, and those are actually, when that's the best aggro deck in the format, I usually like that because the matchups have a lot of play, whereas sometimes when mono red is the aggro deck of choice, it's still fun, but it's like sometimes they're just going to have the mono red draw.
Exactly.
And you're just dead. They're just going to be on the play. They're going to have turn 3 Anax into turn 4 Embercleave, and there's pretty much nothing you could have done about that. Whereas black aggro decks, it always feels like, even if it's not true, it feels like you had a chance. Because you're like, all right, I have this Wrath of God sitting. Oh, they Thoughtseized it at the last second.
Oh. But yeah, I mean, like I've been like it's once again something I don't know how to exactly pinpoint what a Silver Quill card is. Besides like a deck, yes, I can tell a deck is a Silver Quill deck because it's a white,
Right, again,
black
Silver Quill and
aggro
Orzhov
deck.
are super different.
Yeah,
They're not
which
even
makes me
close.
feel like Orzhov Auras in Historic kind of feels a lot more like a Silver Quill deck because most of the things
Yeah.
you're doing are disrupting your opponent. You aren't really worried about a lot of life synergies or aristocrat stuff because really you're just trying to kill their thing and get your thing in and
Right.
beat them with some card advantage different engines, but it doesn't have the same Orzhov feel, and that's why we've kind of switched to say Silver Quill Auras because I really think that makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, it's closer. The deck still sometimes just sits back and literally beats you on raw card advantage
Yeah.
because once they get going, you just can't. No deck can keep up with the amount of cards that they're drawing.
Totally.
But depends on the matchup, right?
Exactly.
Some of them are just a race and you have to play very Silver Quill. Some of them are kind of sit back in an Orzhov-like fashion and
Yeah.
let the inevitable victory come.
Yeah, so actually talking about that, how a deck could be two different names, I just wanted to say, like, number one, are you using these names for anything? Obviously, so Wizards is introducing that these are going to be names of color pairs, and traditionally we have just used the Ravnica ones for everything, including sets that aren't Ravnica, right? If you ever have,
For sure.
a blue-green deck, you say Simic Ramp or whatever, like that's the name of the deck. Are we?
Yeah, and the same is true of the shards and
and the cons
the,
and
yeah, I forget what those are called. Wedges.
the wedges, yeah. But yeah, so first of all, are you using these names?
I am. I'm trying to make a conscious effort to, while Strixhaven is around, use the Strixhaven names. It doesn't come up that often in Standard because most of there are very few two-color pair decks because of the outrageous mana fixing that we have. And the ones that are around are Gruul.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
Dimir.
Dimir, yeah.
So it actually hasn't really come up, but and Rakdos is starting to see a bit more play. It's literally like all of the
All the ally colored.
all the ally colored pairs are doing very well in Standard. But I will definitely be using them to describe Standard decks because once Throne rotates and some of these cards get to see play, like if it's literally a life gain, life spend deck, green black deck. You can't call that Golgari, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's a Witherbloom deck. It has nothing to do with the graveyard. It's not just a green-black mid-range deck. Like, it actually is a Witherbloom deck. You gotta call it Witherbloom.
Exactly. I mean, like, I have, talked to a bunch of people that say that they never want to use the other names. They're like, it took me long enough to figure out what the first ones were. This is what they are. I'm never changing.
And I think that's fair, and it's probably the way the community is going to land on it. I think it depends a lot too on what Wizards does with coverage. So in upcoming, we have the League Weekend this weekend. If somebody plays a green black deck, are they going to call it Golgari mid range or are they going to call it Witherbloom mid range?
Yeah. So that's a big thing. I mean, I think that if Wizards starts saying it, maybe people will might follow in suit, or maybe they're just gonna be like, you know what? No, I'm doing the way I like it. And I mean, like, there were names before the cons, or sorry, the wedges, right?
And I remember I was around at that time and I was watching. I was getting back into Magic, so I started watching these like the Pro Tours and stuff that was going on at the time. And Wizards was always, oh, this is Abzan, this is a Sultai deck. And I remember thinking the names wouldn't stick because they were so bad. I was like, Abzan, Sultai. I remember them thinking they were like lame and clunky. Now they just roll off my tongue and are really normal. So I don't know what it was about that made me think that. But I remember everyone was saying the same thing, that they were just going to keep calling it junk, which, for those who don't know, is Abzan. Or Bug, which was Sultai because Bug is black, blue, green, BUG. And then I don't know if Mardu had a name. I don't think it really did.
Yeah.
But people were just like, I'm going to keep calling it that. I'm not going to use these weird new names that are only around for one block. And that turned out to be false.
Yeah. And people still use them. When I came back into Magic, it was after that. And I hadn't even gotten used to the Ravnica names yet. I didn't know any of them. I had to literally get a chart to teach me what the names were because I would always forget. And people would be talking, and it's like a new language. I had no idea. So I understand if you're a newer player that just learned the language, you're like, no, don't make new ones. I just figured out these ones. However, if you're a new player that this is your first set, and you're like,
right, if you're an even newer player, I don't want people saying Golgari. Like, what's that? Oh, green black. It's like, isn't that Witherbloom?
Isn't that Witherbloom?
No,
And people are like, no, that's not Witherbloom. Like, fuck off or whatever. You're like, well,
I'll never call it Witherbloom.
Yeah, and so it'll just be interesting to see. Ultimately, the community is going to decide because, well, I mean, Jeff, you do tournaments all the time, and you have to register your deck. And can you just write whatever you want as your deck type? Or?
No, so it's although they're all run through MTG Melee, and you have to choose a Ravnica name basically.
So
even if I was playing a Witherbloom deck through and through, it would be called Golgari midrange.
And then all your opponents would see that. And then if people looked up the deck list, it would be called that. And so, I mean, there is that. So we will see if anything kind of changes. But I'm not against calling decks by these names depending on their play style. I think that would be a really great thing. Why not have more information about a deck?
And then if it's a deck that isn't really an aggro deck or a graveyard based mid range spirits deck, you could still just call it Boros because that's what we're used to.
Yeah.
But maybe just call the ones that are literally built around the cards from this set in that college. Just call those ones by the college.
Hey, maybe if you have Velomachus Lorehold in your deck, maybe it should just be a Lorehold.
There you go. You're not naming it after the college. You're naming it after the card in your deck.
Yeah. Which
I'm playing Lorehold.
Yeah. Well, that just becomes another. Yeah, Lorehold. That just becomes another thing about if you can name your decks or not, whatever you want, which we might talk about at some point. But as far as we're landing with the Strixhaven versus Ravnica, I think that Strixhaven did a really good job of making most of the colleges feel different, even if it was just because of the draft format. And Ravnica will always be beloved by everyone, and they have a lot of time and energy put into Ravnica. The comic that's coming out is all Ravnica based. I'm sure that the Netflix series that they're doing is Ravnica stuff, and it's just a lot of people's favorite place. And so I can see why it's really hard to get away from those names. But I would urge you to maybe think about it a little bit.
And when we come back to Arcavios, who knows how involved Strixhaven will even be.
Yeah. Or, maybe we're going to have a new college that isn't Strixhaven. That's all the allied colors.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Or maybe we'll never come back here and everyone will forget about the set.
I don't know. That seems to be pretty popular so far.
Yeah. I mean, if they can just do more Mystical Archive stuff, that'd be great. Maybe we just hang out in the library every once in a while.
Yeah.
That sounds great. But Jeff, I think I need a beer.
Same.
All right, let's go to a beer break. All right, Narnia, show me your secrets.
I'm nervous for this one. Mojitos are my favorite. Favorite libation.
Well, have fun.
I don't know. I find mint is really nice in small amounts, but once you start it's just a ton of mint is when I like it less. So that's why I think I don't tend to like mojitos that much.
I love mint. I love all kinds of mint. I love, mint desserts, mint chocolate stuff.
Oh, mint chocolate is gross.
Oh, I love it. I love mint chocolate ice cream.
No.
I'm all about all of it. Menthol, big. Love it. Learn something new every day about me, I guess. All right, let's get into this. So, Strixhaven League Weekend number 2. It's very exciting because it is the first time we are having Strixhaven cards in Pro Play. Yay!
Didn't you say Strixhaven League Weekend number 2?
Yes, I did say you are correct. It's League Weekend number 2. However, for whatever reason, Wizards likes to do this thing where the League Weekend, right before the new set comes out, that we have for some reason, I don't know why they decided to do that, is named after the set that doesn't have cards in it yet. So basically, Strixhaven League Weekend number 1 came out right before Strixhaven came out. I think they were thinking it's like some sort of advertisement for the set. However, who's watching Magic coverage that doesn't know all about the new set anyway? So,
Right.
it seems like a really bad idea.
Like, even just give the pros the cards a week before everyone else, so then you
That would
can
be
watch
sweet.
people play the new cards.
Oh my God, are you kidding?
Before you
I would-
actually get them,
Yeah, I would be all over that if they were playing with the new cards. It would
that'd be great.
It's
right?
kind of
like
yeah,
a pro pre-release kind of.
yeah. Like a week before the set comes out, they do the kind of the pros do sealed or something, or drafting, or that'd be sick.
And it'd be fun because the pros didn't have 3 months to figure out and master and perfect that format.
Maybe give them like 2 days or something and then go.
Yeah.
That'd be sweet. I would be down for that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
However, that's not the case, and we get to finally see some Strixhaven cards this league weekend. However, there are a couple cards that will be suspended in Historic. I don't remember all of them right now, but it's mainly a lot of the the flip cards from Ixalan. For some reason, there's a bug on Arena where if you have like let's say a Legion's Landing or something, and your Legion's Landing flips into the land, it will still count the one white pip on the other side, the face down side, for your devotion.
Right.
Doesn't seem like a really big deal. However, for whatever reason, number one, they weren't able to fix it very quickly. So last week they just said, hey, these cards are suspended. You can't play them.
It's just all the flip cards, right?
Yeah, it's just all the flip cards.
as well.
Yeah, and so the Grixis Nicobolas, that's the creature that flips. I guess they're all Grixis. I don't know why I said that. And I think the other one is Search for Azcanta is one of the big ones that's gone.
That's the only one that matters. The funny thing is this rule error probably wouldn't have mattered at all for the tournament. Like, Devotion is just not a thing you can do in Historic.
Yeah.
Whereas the card they banned for its, issue in Search for Azcanta would have been played this weekend if it were legal. So it's almost like the bug, instead of... They made the bug actually have an effect when it probably wouldn't have had an effect.
Yeah.
But, you don't want to incentivize, hey, should I test out this Devotion deck because I know Devotion isn't working properly right now?
So it's, I can cheat this loophole or whatever.
Right. You don't want any of that. So I guess it's fine.
It's just weird.
Obviously, it would have been optimal if they could have fixed the problem in time.
Yeah.
And just so everyone's not, oh, well, I play Search for Azcanta in Historic right now. It's like, this is only suspended for this exact event. If you're a pro player in this event, it's suspended, but you can actually play those cards on Arena right now. It's fine.
Yeah. And you can play them in other tournaments too. A lot of other tournaments are saying, those organizers are like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. You will play by those rules. It's just that league weekend that has any of this happening, which is part of the really weird part. Anyway.
Yeah.
Hopefully the part of the reason is because Thassa's Oracle cares about Devotion. So there is a corner case that your flipped Search for Azcanta will give you an extra pip for Devotion.
Yeah, but if you've played against the Tainted Pact combo deck, you know what their Devotion is doesn't matter at all. They have 0 cards in their libraries. So.
Anyway.
But yeah, it is conceivable. A very corner case.
So that's kind of why they did that. Anyway, League Weekend stuff. Just a quick recap of last League Weekend. Now we're in the section where players get relegated and players go to the MPL for next year and all that kind of stuff. So what happened was that Andre Strosky and Ely Cassis are now locked in for the MPL next year.
Congratulations, Andre and Ely.
Yeah, good work.
Ely played out of his mind this season. So did Andre, and he played out of his mind in that last league weekend for sure. But Ely's really impressed me this season.
Yeah.
As somebody I have actually lost to in a tournament, makes me feel good to not have won that match, considering nobody seems to be able to beat him.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so as far as the MPL players that are moving to Rivals or relegated, they're kind of at the bottom, who will no longer be playing this season, are Canister and then Chris Kovartik and Raphael Levy. So all those three are officially Rivals members at this point.
Yeah, so sad to see that, but, still exciting that we'll get to see them in Rivals next year.
Mm-hmm. And then as far as rivals that are now just normal challengers like the rest of us, we have John Rolfe, Ben Stark, Ali Warfield, Beatrice Grancha, and Joel Larson.
These are some of my favorite players.
I know.
That's a bummer.
I'm pretty sad about Ali because it seems like she is moving on to possibly doing some other games as opposed to Magic. So that's a big sad.
Yeah, and it's only sad because the games she's playing are not games that I'm that into myself, so I probably won't be
watching her as much.
And she was awesome. One of my preferred streamers to watch whenever she was on.
Yeah.
But Ben Stark, this lets him focus on his one true love of Limited.
Yeah,
so.
now he just can play Limited on his phone constantly.
These stupid Rivals League things won't be getting in his way anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying at this time. So anyway, with all said and done, there will be 60 player this weekend playing for different spots and getting into the MPL or not getting relegated and all those kinds of things. There are 20 left in the MPL and 40 left in Rivals. As always, check Ball Lightning's Twitter feed to keep up with what's going on, because Ball Lightning is probably the best person to be figuring out what's going on.
All right, so coming up this weekend, we basically have the exact same thing that happened last time for the first league weekend. Few key differences. This time we're allowed Strixhaven cards, as mentioned.
Hey!
But we're still playing Standard and Historic. And now the pods are a bit smaller because the people we just talked about are no longer participating. And so the pods get messed up because it's not the clean numbers that we had last time. We have 20 players instead of 24 in the MBL, for example, and that doesn't divide evenly into 8. So the pods are just a little bit different.
Yeah. So the
idea is the same.
Are they? I was thinking that they're just going to be like 2 pods of 10, but there might be 3 pods like 776 or something like that. I'm not exactly sure how they were going to do it. The website does not help us with these things.
It's hard to find this information, but
so we have looked for it. We were inconclusive, but I'm kind of guessing 2 pods of 10, but I could definitely see 3 pods with 1 short a number, which seems strange, but hey.
Yeah, basically what it means is that you're not going to get the perfect pod play we had last time where you're always matched against someone of the exact same record in that mini pod. Mm-hmm. Like the 1-0s play, the 2-0s play, and then fight for 3-0 or whatever. And so you only end up with 1 3-0 player. But everyone around who's ever drafted at a store has encountered this, right? It's very rare that you actually get the perfect divisible by 8 number of drafters show up. So everyone's been in a pod that wasn't 8 players.
Yeah, exactly. But as we always do, we do fantasy sports here on the Arena Regulars. And so we will be drafting fantasy teams right before your very eyes right now. And just because fantasy sports are fun.
Right before their ears, I suppose.
Yeah, our ears. Yeah, you're not. Well, I guess you could just be looking at your phone and not see our faces. But anyway, as always, our teams consist of 3 MPL players, 4 Rivals players, and we also pick the highest meta percentage for both formats and the top performing decks for both formats as well.
Right, and so everyone by now knows that this is for some serious stakes.
Really big stakes.
Yeah. So the loser has to buy a weird 2-4 for the winner. Mm-hmm. So they have to hand select, a curated selection of 24 beers that must be delivered to the winner. So we're not talking, small fry here.
Yeah, this isn't like a handshake or nothing. This
exactly.
And
we're neck and neck, aren't we?
This is beer we're talking about. Yes, and we are neck and neck. Currently, the standings are 3-3 after I had a blazing victory the last 2 weekends or whatever. So it has been great with that. Yes, so the scoring system goes as we get 1 point for each win that your player gets, and you get 2 points for each of the highest meta percentage or top performing decks that you have gotten. And for those top performing decks or meta percentages, you get 2 additional points if you beat the other player's top performing or highest meta percentage guess. So with that, we just kind of have to get right into things. This one's going to be weird. just because, things are getting crazy now. I don't know what's going on. But as always, we have the
ceremonial tuning.
We do. So Jeff, if you would like to call it in the air, and maybe don't get maybe don't call what you always call is what I was gonna say.
You're trying to get in my head.
I'm trying to get out of my own head. All right, here we go. You ready?
Yeah. Tails.
Whoa, Tails! Good job.
Your tricks didn't work.
Hey, okay, all right. Well, there you go. So you get to either pick first for MPL or defer to rivals.
I'll take the MPL pick.
All right, go ahead.
All right, with my first selection, I will be choosing the third place MPL competitor. Should I go with third place or second place? Like, is Andre just locked for first and now everyone's relative to
Yes,
that?
so Andre is locked for first, so everything else is relative to.
All right, so the third place MPL competitor, I got to go with PVDDR, Paolo Vitor Damo de Rosa, sometimes known as Paula Vito Damo de Rosa. And you might know him as the Elite Spellbinder. He had a dominant performance all season, and just last week, or last time, didn't live up to his own lofty standards, and I think he's going to be raging back here, especially if he gets to play as himself. So yes. I'm going to choose Paulo.
Great, that's a good pick. I was expecting that, and as always, if you've listened to these before, we kind of have our top two are pretty close to set in stone. Though it starts to get a little bit harder here because. With these pods and stuff, it can be a little difficult. However, I will be picking the player that is currently in second place, who is Gabriel Nassif.
Okay. I like that. All right, with my next pick, this is somebody who has really done me a solid in the past, and I'm just feeling it again. Last time I was feeling it, and they top 8'd the event. I'm feeling it this time. I'm going to jump all the way down to tied for 6th place. I will be choosing Andrea Mengucci.
Ooh. Okay, that's a good one. Ooh.
Just Andrea, please don't submit 160 cards for this event. Please. Or what is it with the sideboards? 190 cards.
Yeah, 190 cards. I can definitely see that happening.
I think he did it last time, just not this time, Andrea.
Yeah. Okay, all right, that feels pretty solid. I like that. I'm kind of going around. I think so this is where the pods start to get in my head a little bit. However, I think that I have a clear idea of what I want to do. What I'm going to do is, this is what I'm going to do.
Tell me what you're going to do.
Yeah, so tied for 15th place, going way down.
Okay.
I am going to pick Shahar Shenhar.
All right. I was like, is he picking Shahar or Huey?
Yeah,
I could see either being a fine pick.
Yeah, so I'm picking Shahar. The strategy behind this is that they are in different pods or pools, so that you won't have as many matches against each other. So I might not get as many random losses out of nowhere.
Right.
Where it's like a win-loss. I don't want any of those. I don't know if it's going to be good, but it's a
guaranteed point, though.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But it's also I got to gamble a little bit, right?
Yep. Now I'm wondering if I want to do that. Okay, you know what? Maybe I will. And I'm going to take another wild card pick here that's again worked out for me in the past. I'm going to take 12th place, Ken Yukihiro.
Oh, I could totally see that. All right, so Ken, okay, let me look at your team. That seems pretty good. Mengucci, good. All right. I was thinking about taking a really big shot in this last one, and I don't know if I should, but I might not ever be able to take this again. So I think I'm going to go for it. I like
that logic.
I'm feeling wily.
Keep going down that track. You should take Raphael Levy,
I think. No, I can't. I won't be doing that. However, I like what's going on with this player. And I'm just going to pick, tied for 18th place, this is Brian Bronduin.
Okay.
Yeah.
You might be backing double rogues there. He's a known rogues aficionado.
And that is one of the reasons why I like him, I think. So, that was not an accident. I'll
Good teams. Good teams.
All right. I feel very wild on this, but I think I think I got something here. I'm feeling something.
You're taking Ely Cassis. Smart. You did so well last week. Good choice.
All right. So obviously with rivals, there's some things going on. Boy, this one's hard, but I really do think that just solidly in second place, I'm taking Matt Sperling.
Very nice. All right, well, after a good performance last time, sort of cemented himself again as at the top of the Rivals League. I mean, I think I'd be crazy here not to take one of the best players of all time in Luis Scott Vargas. Mm-hmm. In fourth place.
Yes. He was quite good. He had a bit of a rivalry with Matt, and I was debating whether I wanted to pick, which one I wanted to pick. But I'm wondering if Matt
think they maybe test with the same team,
so it doesn't. I don't know. So maybe Matt will this time think, oh, I might have a little silver bullet for Luis.
That I just won't tell my teammates about. Yeah. Stuff this in the sideboard.
I'll just do this. Let's see.
I think Luis is the more likely one to have that going on.
That is very true, actually. He does like doing those things.
He likes shenanigans.
He does. So, I have too many shots. I got too many shots going on. I'm going to go just solid fifth place. I'm going to do Austin Bursavage. I like him.
All right, well then I'm going to also jump out of pod and just let our two pod guys battle in that top pod. And I'm actually going to go to someone that I know has recently won a tournament because they beat me to do it. We're here on Team LSV. We're going in tied for 12th. Luis Salvato. He hasn't been on my team in too long, and he's always played great for me.
I knew you would.
He's played great for me and against me.
Yeah,
so.
I just knew you were going to take Luis Salvato if you just could. You just love Luis so much.
I want to just draft all the players that I've personally lost to. You know, if Ely was around, I'd take him.
Yeah, I mean, I can.
I lost to Carlos Ramao on the last.
Yeah, maybe I'll take Matt Nass because that's the only person I've ever lost to.
Damn, you're good. Yeah, that's the only person you've ever lost to.
Makes me sound like I beat everybody else. So I'm gonna take with this one. I'll also take someone tied for 12th, but I'm taking Chris Botello.
Good choice. I like Chris a lot.
Yeah.
He's a good deck builder, and if you ever watch his stream, really down-to-earth guy.
Yeah, I love everything he says on Twitter. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's definitely worth a Twitter follow. Mm-hmm. All right, you know who I'm actually going to choose? This might be... It's hard because they have, like, the tide, so it's hard to say just where the clear pod cutoffs are. I think this is going to be in the same pod as my last choice, but this player's just been playing out of their minds lately, and I know they take it super seriously and just practice a ton. So... In 11th place, I'll be choosing Grzegorz Kowalski.
Okay, yeah. That's a good pick. That's a really good pick.
Played really well last time, losing only to the unbeatable Arne Huschenbett.
All right, so with my final Rivals pick, I think I'm just going to go with an oldie but a goodie, you know? Someone who's just been around the block once or twice. I'm going to pick Kai Buddha.
Once or twice, eh?
Oh, yeah. He's also tied for 26th place, is Kai Buddha.
And just casually, you know, tied for best player of all time in a lot of people's minds.
Well, you know, there's also that.
I like the idea of going down a pod here. Mm-hmm. Oh, man, it's too tough to choose, though. You know what? I'm just going to go back up into the top pod, get myself two top pod guys,
That's right. I got two top pod guys.
Two mid-pod folks. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm just going to do it. You know, I'm curious, or I'm wondering, because they let me down last time. But I'm going to give them the chance to redeem themselves. In third place, I'll be selecting Stanislav Sivka.
It's so weird to have Sivka go so late.
They're just such a good player. Yeah. And the last two events, which he was on my team for both of them, did not really perform up to his usual high standards. But again, just kind of like PV, I expect him to kind of roar back here because he's just too good not to.
Yeah, exactly. Well, great. So those are our teams. Let's just quickly. Actually, no, we'll do that at the end. Let's go into metagame percentage for standard. This is, I don't feel that much different than I have in previous standards.
No?
I feel like I feel very, very similar. You've been playing a lot more standard than I have. However, most of my feelings are kind of close to
I actually only really played standard this past weekend. Before that, I was all about historic, the new historic event.
All right. Well, what are you thinking for standard then? Do you have something nailed down?
Yeah, I mean, I actually kind of thought this event was just historic, so that's all I was thinking about before we fired this up.
Yeah.
But just playing in the event this past weekend, did okay, by the way. Went 5-3 with the sacrifice deck. I think it's really close. There are a lot of top decks in standard. I wouldn't fault someone for choosing any number of decks for this. What's going to be the most played. I think if I'm extrapolating to the pros and just what we've seen in the past from them, I'm going to choose Naya Adventures.
Okay.
But I'm not confident in it only because I think there are a lot of decks that could take the number one spot. I know people are going to play this deck, but, and it's going to be significant, but is it going to be higher than some of the other options? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's always the gamble. I was thinking...
But sometimes there's like a clear number one, like when we started this, it was like, well, we both picked Gruul Adventures. It's the most played deck,
obviously.
Won by a landslide. Yeah. So what's next? Yeah.
So this one, I mean, I'm just going to say, I already had it nailed down. I want to say Teamer Adventures. So I'll just put that in, but...
it's one of the options.
Yeah.
I think the other option is Ultimatum.
I was going between those two, but between Naya and Teamer, I thought I'd just throw that in the ring. And I could say Ultimatum, but I think I picked that last time and it was kind of boring. So
yeah, I mean, it's definitely boring. That deck is...
but top performing deck. So I may have alluded to this a little bit when we were talking before, but I'm just going to go ahead and just jam in Dimir Rogues.
Yeah, good choice. Dimir Rogues is one of those decks that performs really well at the top level because...
you won't always see it in the metagame breakdowns by MTG Data on Twitter, but a lot of it can be like, oh, these are some players that are good, but they're not amazing. And in a pro's hands, man, that deck is fantastic. And Brian Braun-Duin has been playing that deck a lot. That's
true. That's
so
true.
Hopefully he, skyrockets and really gets that percentage up. That'd be great for me. I would love that.
Yeah. I really want to bet on a sacrifice deck, but I just can't. So what deck is going to perform the best?
It's probably Mono Green Stompy.
If I knew people were bringing that, I wouldn't hate the answer.
Yeah. I just don't think anyone's going to really bring it. There might be a couple.
Again,
maybe Ken.
Rogues is a pretty good choice.
I mean, Mono Red. Martin Yuza isn't going to bring that ever again. Actually, after that disaster, I don't think anyone's going to bring that. Besides, Li Shitian might bring it again.
Yeah, that deck did very poorly.
Li Shitian was phenomenal with it, and I was wondering whether he was going to play again because it would really bolster the numbers if he does well. But I don't know if he's going to bring it again. I think that was kind of a one-hit wonder for that.
Yeah. I'm going to take a shot here. Am I going to take a shot?
Rakdos?
I'm not going to take that shot because I've learned my lesson.
Have you, though? I don't know if you
have.
And
this is the time that Rakdos is actually
You picked Luis Salvato. He's going to play Rakdos.
Yeah, I'll just count that as a win personally, even if I didn't pick it on paper. Mm-hmm. No, I was debating picking Cycling.
I thought you hated that deck in Standard.
I do hate that deck, but I think a few people are going to bring it, and I think whenever people forget to hate on Cycling, it comes back and just wins a lot. But I think I'm just going to go with Sultai.
Okay. All right. I was kind of excited for that your Cycling bet. That seems pretty fun.
But I want it on record that I thought about taking Cycling. So if Cycling ends up the winningest deck,
it's fine.
I want a moral.
If that's what happens, I'm going to make sure I cut that out of the episode. Actually, no, just kidding. The episode's going to come out before we know that.
Yeah.
I'll go back. I'll retract that later.
Yeah.
Okay, so far, historic as far as like meta percentage. What deck do we think people are going to bring the most of to
Right.
to this historic?
So this is the one I've thought a bit more about. So given the timing on when they had to submit these decks, and a lot of weird stuff going on with historic, for this I'm actually going to choose Gruul.
Interesting.
I think that a lot of players that are in the MPL and Rivals favor this kind of deck and its explosiveness.
No, that does make a lot of sense. The more I look at some of the other decks, this one was super hard for me because I just really didn't know what people were going to be looking for. Some of the the Ultimatum decks in historic were freaking crazy, and they're going to be like just some of these spells are like take all the turns things.
Oh man, historic is a wild west, right? Like
I think Is It Phoenix is a real deck that people will be thinking about. I just don't know if the pros are going to bring it. It's really hard for me to not say auras because I love auras. And I definitely think people are going to play it. I just don't think enough people are going to play it. It's a really good deck right now.
It's a good deck.
But I think from all of these aspects, I like the Gruul pick. That is interesting. I was thinking more of a different deck. I was thinking Celestia Company, actually. I'm going to lock it in.
You want to lock that in?
I think that, well, I don't know. We'll see what happens. It seems like kind of the deck that...
It's a good deck, and it's a deck that is similar to Rogues in the sense that it's a deck that is much better
piloted by
in the hands of a good of a better
Agreed.
player. Like, because the cards themselves are underpowered relative to the format, it really takes an understanding of applying pressure and disruption at the same time, and when to sequence how to sequence and when to hold spells and when to cast them, stuff like Kazandu Mammoth. It's not really up to snuff for historic, but when you're good enough to make it up to snuff, you know when to play your Paulo and when to play your Kazandu Mammoth, then the deck gets a lot better.
I like them having the use of Paolo is great. There's some good hate bears that really hurt on some of these other decks. Having your Rest in Peace in the sideboard can be really helpful against some of these matchups. I think it's going to be good. So with that, I think I'm doubling down on this fucking deck. I really am.
I was thinking about doubling down on Naya, actually.
So that's what...
I was like, am I going to pull a double
I'm
down?
doubling down on Celestia Company. Let's do it. Let's go.
Okay. Unfortunately, I'm going to choose something that is going to make me sad to the very core.
Oh, what is it?
But I think it's the reality we live in. The top performing deck for me, Dimir Pact combo.
Oh, buddy.
Even without Search for Azcanta. I thought this deck was garbage, and then I lost to it twice in a satellite. Like, I went 4-2, losing only to 2 games to Dimir Pact and beating all non-Dimir Pact decks. And then I played in that longer historic event, played against Dimir Pact. I managed to win, but I got insanely lucky. Mm-hmm. And so I started to think, maybe this deck just doesn't suck, and then I started seeing it perform really well. And I've played against it a bunch of times since, and so I've gone from thinking the deck is unplayable garbage to thinking it's broken.
That's amazing. I love when that happens.
Yeah.
That's funny because Celestia Company, the reason I am higher on it is that it's, to me, I think it's a hard matchup against Auras. I had a really rough time getting through that freaking all their crap. Anytime they're like, hey, you can only play 1 spell a turn, I'm like, awesome. That's not what I want to do at all. This is the worst. So...
yeah, Celestia Company is a perfect example of a meta deck where in some meta games it would be horrible. Celestia Company was what I always hoped to play against when I was Jeskai Control, because that was basically a free win, because you just Lightning Helix their stuff that matters, Thalia, Redain, Paulo, and you wipe the board with one of your many rats, and just make sure you have a memory lapse or whatever for their collected company, and you just win the game. But most other decks had a lot of trouble with them, so it was like a very it's going to have matchups that are very positive and matchups that are very negative. And that's why I think it's important when a pro plays it, they can dampen those negative matchups a bit with their play skill. And so
it'll be interesting. I mean,
yeah,
all my eggs are. I'm taking shots this week. I'm going no prisoners. I want to close this thing out fast. Win this one, win the next one, and then get you to give me my beer.
Yeah, I think Tainted Pact is going to get banned
after this tournament. After this,
I don't know about after this tournament, but at some point, I think it will no longer be acceptable to play this in Historic.
Do you think they will do Tainted Pact before Thassa's Oracle?
I would do Tainted Pact before I did Thassa's Oracle, because Thassa's Oracle is a powerful card for sure. Like I think we even had months ago talked on air about it's blows my mind that there's no Thassa's Oracle deck in Historic. Yeah, I've always wondered that. Like, come on, Thassa's Oracle is such a good alternate win condition and Historic has so many cards, there must be a Thassa's Oracle deck, and this was just the best one, I guess. But it's the enabler that's really the problem here, because it's instant speed. It's like playing against Splinter Twin if the total combo costs 4 mana instead of 7. It's like, this is ridiculous. But of course, they have to pay the consistency price of singletons to make that happen.
Yeah, and the rope.
Yeah, that's the other issue, which I think will help get it banned, is that it's not particularly arena friendly anyways. And Historic's an arena format.
Exactly. That makes sense. So stay tuned for that. But let's run these teams back. Obviously it's towards the end of the show. Hey, everyone at home, you'd be surprised how hard it is to talk after 2 beers. You think you're fine? It's harder than you think.
I don't know. I taught calculus and I was always drunk.
That's good. All right, so we have that on tape. All right. Now fire Jeff and make him do the podcast full time. Anyway, Jeff, would you like to read your team out for everyone?
I would love to. So my MPL members consist of Paulo Vitor Damodarosa, Andrea Mengucci, and Ken Yukihiro. My Rivals League members consist of Luis Scott Vargas, Luis Salvato, Gregor Kowalski, and Stanislav Sivka. My top played deck in Standard prediction is Naya Adventures. My top performing prediction in Standard is Sultai Ultimatum. My top played deck in Historic prediction is Gruul Aggro. And my top performing deck prediction in Historic is Dimir Pact.
Very nice, very nice. So my MPL players are Gabriel Nassif, Shahar Shenhar, and Brian Braun-Duin, BBD himself. My Rivals players are Matt Sperling, Austin Bursavage, Chris Botello, and Kai Buddha. The meta percentage, so the top brought deck is Teamer Adventures for Standard. The top performing deck, I believe, will be Dimir Rogues for Standard. And then for Historic, the meta percentage or most brought deck will be Celestia Company. And once again, the top performing deck will also be Celestia Company. Oh, but Jeff, do you hear that?
I don't hear anything. What?
How long can I make this joke and just keep going? Before I get a soundboard and can actually make a bell. Anyway, it's last call. There should be a bell ringing right now.
I feel like we've been threatening that for too long. We need to just get that soundboard.
If we get a Patreon, hey, we need money for a soundboard.
Also, to understand how it works.
Yes. And a book to teach us how to make soundboards.
Yeah, we need soundboards for dummies, and that's not cheap, folks.
No, so if you could make a Patreon for us and then put money into it.
Or ship us Patreons for dummies.
Yeah.
To start out.
Because we don't know how that works either. Anyway, let's get a beer.
Last call.
You ready for this?
Oh, I'm ready.
Okay.
The grand reveal.
Here we are. 3, 2, 1. Hey! You came to the dark side, buddy.
Yeah.
Ooh, you getting that Mojito IPA?
Hey, I said I liked mint when it's a hint.
Yes. Yeah, when you were saying that.
That's why it rhymes. A hint of mint.
Yeah. I didn't want to spoil anything, but when you were saying how much you're really not into mint, I was thinking, oh boy, this is not mint heavy at all. It is really subtle.
And again, I love mint a little bit to accentuate other things. Mm-hmm. I don't like, I don't think I would ever have a mint pesto when I just blend a bunch of mint with some oil.
Oh,
that sounds gross.
Oh,
but
that sounds great.
The other herb I feel that way about is sage, by the way. That people use too much sage. It tastes kind of medicinal to me when you have so much of it.
I know that at one point I was allergic to sagebrush, so I was always kind of like, can I have too much sage? I don't really know.
Like, have you ever just chomped into a sage leaf?
They're
it tastes
weird.
like medicine.
Yeah, well, I mean, herbs. Anyway,
Yeah.
sweet. I'm so happy that you picked this beer. That's great.
Yeah.
Before we get into all this, first, actually, we should go over the rating system. So as always, Arena has its tier list, which is whatever. And it's not a tier list. It's a tier whatever. There are tiers in Arena. You know what I'm talking about.
It's a ladder. I don't know.
There we go. Tier ladder. There's ladders of the tiers. Whatever. Okay, so it's bronze to mythic, which you can be at, and so we rate beers from bronze to mythic. As always, this has nothing to do with any player who is actually at these tiers in the game. This is just a way to rank beers that's fun. So, Jeff, what is bronze?
Bronze is basically trash beer that we would never drink, as far as I understand.
Yes. What's silver?
Silver is kind of, I have this pegged as my macro brew tier. You know, the stuff that is fine but not exciting. You wouldn't tell your friends about it. I'm not going to go, hey, I tried this awesome new beer. It's called Budweiser. You ever had it?
Yeah. And so gold?
Gold is the beers that are pretty good. It's not your favorite. You might not have it again, but you acknowledge that it's pretty good.
Platinum?
These are the beers that you will drink again.
And
So like if you drink this, you're like, that's good. I would have this again, but I'm not gonna go post on Twitter about how good it is. That's platinum.
diamond?
Diamond is, now we're talking about recommending. So this is an exceptional beer. You would recommend it to your friends.
And mythic?
This beer is so good you will recommend it to anyone who will listen. So you will be stopping someone at a beer store. If you overhear them say, I don't know what to get, you say, get this. It's that good.
Yeah. And even the people that don't even want to hear you talk to them about it. I do this with many things.
It doesn't matter. The beer is so good that they're going to hear about it.
Yeah. And then they might not pick it because you were so strange and creepy and scary. Yeah. So with that, our random not really tap takeover, but it happened to be Sawdust City Brewing Company. Man, where are these people again? Gravenhurst, Ontario. I just want to first off say that I think...
actually been there.
Yeah? You've been
Not to
there?
Sawdust City Brewing, but to Gravenhurst.
Okay. I just want to say that we've had a couple of beers from them, and it just seems like, for whatever reason, I was thinking like, okay, they seem all right, just like looking at their stuff and thinking about them. But every beer we've had has been pretty great. I've been like really enjoying a lot of their stuff.
They're like my go-to example of the brewery that whenever I see it in the store, I'm like, oh, it's Sawdust City. They're decent. And then every time I try their beer, I'm like, this is good.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking too. Where I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, they're one of the breweries. There's a lot better ones, but I don't think I've ever had a beer that they made that I was like, ugh, okay, well.
But I'm like surprised every time for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's their market. I'm always like,
maybe
Sawdust City. I guess I'll give them another chance. I'm like, oh, this is better than I expected.
Yeah.
And that happens with every beer, but I still have this.
Yeah.
Like not negative, but kind of
just like
meh.
Yeah, maybe it's because their stuff's around. Whatever it is, if you haven't had Sawdust City and if you're ever in the Toronto area, you can pick up probably any beer that they make and feel pretty confident that it's going to be solid, definitely drinkable and tasty, which is exactly what I think this Mojito IPA is. Yeah, it has a nice like lime tart is the front and really what I feel. Just a little bit of mint, but not too much. Just fresh. High in alcohol. It's got some great stuff. I
don't even know if I would tell you on a blind taste test that it's mint, but fresh is the right word because the mint gives it that just like you just get some sort of freshness. Kind of like when you add just a little bit of herbs to food, right?
Yeah.
It's just to freshen it up mostly.
Exactly.
And you often doesn't matter which herbs you're even adding. It's just to get some of that in there.
Brighten it up. It's really nice. It reminds me a little bit of Mill Street made a key lime pie IPA that I liked a lot last summer. I drank a ton of it. This isn't the same as that because obviously we're not looking for the pie notes, but it does kind of have a little bit of that like crusty key lime pie, like the cinnamony, graham crackery. There's like a brown sugar a little bit. It's almost like
You
they
get the lime in this for sure. Like
yeah,
that's
because it's almost they used like lime and then like a brown sugar was like the sugar they used for the mojito kind of. The more I talk about this, the more I like it, which is funny.
Yeah, I mean, lime and beers is a good combo too. I mean,
exactly.
it feels like lime and pretty much anything is a good combo.
Lime is the best. I love lime. I love lime. Originally,
This has become a citrus review podcast, by the way.
So, of all the citruses, I think lime is the best, and then orange, then lemon and grapefruit.
Oh, you're doing lemon.
I know you like lemons. Anyway, this has nothing to do with that. Oh, fucking whatever, bud. Okay, so as I talk about this, what do you think about this beer? I was gonna say, I'm gonna let you say first because I always say first.
I think this beer has slowly, through the course of this episode, crept its way into Diamond.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. When I literally picked it up in this last bit, the last like 2 minutes, I was going to be like, this is solid platinum. But the more I talked about it, the more I was like, you know what? This is a Diamond beer.
I was ready to give it platinum, and then I opened this one and poured it and took a few sips. And every sip was like, it's getting closer.
It's getting closer. I really like this. Yeah, let's give it Diamond. I'm feeling...
Yeah, so I think we should just give it Diamond.
Let's give it Diamond. That's solid. So the Narnia IPA that you had brought, also really tasty, you know?
Yeah, speaking of platinum, I mean...
Yeah, exactly. I think that was a really solid platinum beer. I would drink that again. If I see it at the store, I'd be like, yeah, these are great. I'll grab them.
No, you're going to be like, ooh, Sawdust City?
I don't know. Then I'll pick up a different Sawdust City and be like, whoa, this is surprising. This is Sawdust City makes good beer.
Yeah, Narnia is weird because it's called a little IPA, and it totally hit that, I think. It's like it has notes of IPA, but just less in your face than you're used to.
Yeah.
So it really is a little IPA. But for me, that left me a bit wanting of like, I mean, there's a reason that IPAs tend to be bigger. That's the style, and that's what I want out of an IPA. You know? So I think they did a good job of making a more accessible IPA. I mean, it's only 5.5%. It does have those flavors you traditionally associate with an IPA, but it's definitely pulled back and more mellow.
For sure.
And you might be thinking, oh, lower percentage IPA, that's just a pale ale, right? It's like, I thought so too when I read the description, but this kind of, it does have some characteristics of classic IPAs that like...
Yeah, it's like really, cloudy and kind of has that body, like this really big IPA body. But I
think it's well made for what they were going for.
Absolutely.
Right? It's just not necessarily what I'm looking for.
I actually liked it quite a bit more than you probably. I was really enjoying that one. It just felt really rock solid. You know, like I didn't have to ever think about the beer I was drinking it. I was like, oof, this is good. I like it. You know, I'm not going to think too much about it in the future, but if I ever see it again, I'll be like, oh, Narnia, that's a good one.
Like I'm still giving it platinum, right?
Absolutely.
So it's still good.
Yeah.
And I would recommend it to somebody who isn't an IPA lover, but maybe wants to experience the flavors or what other people like about IPAs.
Individual.
You know, like I'd be like, hey, try this one. It's probably more your speed and might even be like a gateway to IPAs.
Yeah, exactly. You know, through this whole experience, I feel like we should just take a road trip and go up to just take a day trip to go up to Sawdust City because, it sounds like I need to go there sometime. Whenever I'm fully vaccinated, that'd be sweet.
Yeah, I mean, that's a road trip. We have to hit the road to get there.
Yeah, that's true. It's a few hours. But anyway, with that, I think it is closing time. Jeff, what do you think?
I think so.
I guess you don't really have a choice. It just is closing time.
It just is. Yeah.
If you want to talk to us
closing time.
Oh God, I thought we were past this, Jeff.
You thought wrong.
So if you want to talk to us about a new song that we can sing at the end of the show, you can always reach us at Arena Regulars on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, we will ignore any suggestions for new songs to sing, but all other comments will be appreciated. You can also look for us on MTG Arena itself under the username Arena Regulars Podcast. We'll probably be milling you out with rogues, but might have a few new decks that you could see us
Yeah,
playing. So.
there's a couple new ones that you might see. You can always reach me personally. I'm Zach, by the way, if you forgot. At Zulberg, Zeulberg on Twitter and Instagram. But Jeff, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me also on Twitter at BluesBrewsMTG.
And we would love it if you could give us a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify and Stitcher. Or go to Anchor. Leave a comment on YouTube or subscribe to us. It's just, any way to say hey, because we really appreciate that. We would love any feedback that you have.
We really do love it.
This has been the Arena Regulars.
Reminding you that Lorehold is not Boros.
Good night. All right, that's fine.